Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I know that you will all agree with me when I say that today people are more psychology conscious than ever before. Have you noticed, if you go to a movie, if you pick up a book, what is the most common theme? Psychology. Women are encouraged to raise their children by using a little more psychology. Men to build better business, better income through psychology. Let me tell you about City College in New York City. City College is attended mostly by Jewish boys and girls. One day, the City College football team was playing Holy Cross football team, and City College was losing and losing badly. The captain said, for heaven's sakes, why don't we use a little psychology? Let's call all the signals in Yiddish. Which is just what he did. He stood up and he started to call, 16, 20, 39, 44. The captain of the Holy Cross team stood up, looked at him, and said, Es wird euch gar nicht helfen. Now, before we go any further, let me ask you a question. How many of you do not understand Yiddish? Raise your hands. Oh, you are Afzoris. And those of you translating, you are of größere Zoris. Now, I know that you all know such common Yiddish words like a größere man, a butcher man, a laundry man. You know, I had a little trouble myself. I tried to find out, how do you say disappointed in Yiddish? Anybody here know how to say it? I didn't think so. Well, I couldn't think of the word either. I called up my mother. I knew she'd know. But instead of asking her directly, I said to her, tell me, how would you like me to come for dinner tomorrow night? Oh, she says, wonderful, like wir machen Knedlach, Strudel, Mandel, Kreplach soup. I said, and what if I don't come? So she said, oh, azay will ich sein sehr disappointed. You know, I hope you translators will just lean back and stop translating, because it's absolutely impossible. You cannot translate. Not only will it not come out right, but actually it's dangerous. Well, it is. It is. Here, let me prove it to you. What do you say in English? In English, you say, she sleeps on 3 pillows, he sleeps on 4. In Yiddish, you have to say, sie schlaft auf 3 Kischens and schlaft auf 4. Go ahead, try and translate that one. I'd like to see you do that. You know, I was born at a time when my grandmother, bless her soul, was still living. My grandmother spoke nothing but Yiddish. My mother took me to the Yiddish theater when I was 1 year old. And between my grandmother and the Yiddish theater, I learned my Yiddish. And I've been so grateful, because it's the only language I know that has a built-in sense of humor. What other language, for example, has a word like kaduchas? You don't even have to know what it means. It just sounds funny, doesn't it? You know, I speak a little Italian, Spanish, French, but what good is it? Man versteht es nicht. How would you translate, for example, "Sie ist freilich und pippig"? You've got to say, she has naval maneuvers. And really, what good does it do to translate? What does it mean when you say, a gesundter und pippig? It simply means you should have a healthy belly button. Yiddish, you know, is a picturesque language. You can really express yourself in Yiddish. Did you ever compare it with English? Oh, it's quite a difference. For example, what do you say in English? You say tall, taller, tallest. But what do you say in Yiddish? Lang, länger, halaksh. In English, you say homely, homelier, homeliest. But in Yiddish, you say mies, nicht da gedacht. Na schöneren legt man in Dreher da rein. In English, you say rich, richer, richest. But in Yiddish, you say reich, auf mir gesagt, ganef. You see, there's a picturesque quality about it. Even in private practice. When I get someone who comes in and complains about his back, his head, his ear, it's really quite dull. It's so flat, they tell you in English. But when I get a real Orthodox Jewish lady who speaks nothing but Yiddish, I can sit enchanted for hours, because she has a different expression for every section of the body. For example, she'll say, "Es zhuzhet mir in linken Ewe." "Es javet mir in linken Ewe." "Es brennt mir in Hals." "Es hackt mir in die Beine." "Es zieht mir in Hinten." "Es burschet mir in Bauch." And I myself don't feel so good either. You see, there are ways of expressing yourself that you cannot do in any other language. Now, you know, if you ever want to understand why this is so humorous, you must understand the psychology of the Jewish people. You know, just studying the psychology of the Jewish people is a fascinating thing. I must tell you, for example, about one lady in the Deep South who had a colored girl working for her. And one day she said to her, "Mandy, are you all finished yet? You all?" She said, "No, ma'am. I got to schwank out a few more stockings." One day, her servant girl, the colored girl, was speaking to her friends, and they asked her what sort of people she was working for. She says, "It's a very nice Jewish family, but they sure have some peculiar habits. They have a holiday called Shabbos, in which they smoke in the bathroom and eat in the dining room. Then they have a holiday called Tisha B'Av, in which they eat in the bathroom and smoke in the dining room. And then, this'll get you, they got a holiday called Yom Kippur, in which they eat and smoke in the bathroom." You know, when you think about it, why do the Jews have such a high sense of humor? If you study their history, you'll find that the Jews have been a persecuted minority for centuries, and they've had to develop a sense of humor to keep them balanced. And a great deal of the Jewish sense of humor is due to their history, but it's a fascinating sense of humor. It's a sense of humor that has kept them balanced, healthy, happy, despite all the persecution of the ages. You see, Hitler lies dead a long time, but the Jews continue to laugh. I will give you an illustration of what I mean by the Jewish sense of humor. One day I was walking down the street on New York's Lower East Side. I happened to get stuck behind a very long, elaborate funeral procession. I went over to a Jewish man, you know, a man with a long berdel. I said to him, "Tell me, who died?" He said, "The gentleman in the first car." Tell me, where else but in New York's Lower East Side would you get such an answer? I know you've all heard of the big department store in New York City called Macy's. Well, Macy's is a sight to see at Christmas time. I wish you could see it. All the children line up, and they come up to Santa Claus, who gives them each a little present. It's really a charming sight. Last Christmas, there sat Santa Claus on his big throne, and the children lined up for a block. One little boy came up to him, and he said, "What's your name, sonny?" He says, "My name is Angelo Cardello, Santa Claus." "Oh," he says, "you're that nice little Catholic boy. You see that big pile of toys over there? Go over and take one." The next little boy came up. "What's your name, sonny?" "My name is Pat O'Brien, Santa Claus." "Oh, you're that nice little Protestant boy. Do you see that big pile of toys over there, sonny? Go over and take one." The third little boy came up to him. "What's your name, sonny?" "I'm Sam Shapiro, Santa Claus." "Oh, you're that nice little Jewish boy, aren't you? Do you see that big pile of toys over there? Nem zwei." You know, the Jews, of course, have a custom whereby before you can have a prayer meeting, you have to have what is known as a minyan. Now, a minyan is a Jewish quorum. One day in the synagogue, they had 9 men, and they needed a 10th one to make the minyan. You cannot go ahead unless you have the 10th one. Nobody could seem to dig up a 10th man. Finally, the char lady, the cleaning woman, said, "Ich will euch kriegen a Zehnte." She went outside on the street. She stopped the first man she saw. She said, "Mister, wie wollt ihr geglichen sein der Zehnte?" He looked her over. He says, Mrs., ich wollte a Fille nicht gewollt sein der Erste.